Good day, students. Welcome to the second semester. So, the first lesson of the semester, we will be talking about testing methods. However, I'd like to take you back to the first semester. We spoke about the different types of methodologies that you can use in order for you to develop a system or a software. And inside those methodologies, there's a very important phase, which is called testing. Now, before you deploy or before you release a system or a software that you are developing, that system or software need to be tested first. Okay? So in this lesson for today, we are going to focus more on testing methods. In other words, we are going to look at different methodologies or different testing methodologies that you can use to test a system or a software before it is deployed. Now, let's first start with defining what testing methodologies is all about. Number one, testing methodologies are the strategies and approaches used to test a particular product to ensure it is fit for purpose. This is very clear. Testing methodologies, these are just strategies or approaches that you can use to test your system or your software before you release it, just for you to make sure that it is fit enough for its purpose. Okay? In other words, it usually involves testing the system or a software in order for it to work in accordance with its specifications. Okay? So let's look at the importance of testing. Number one, it helps in saving money. If you test your system earlier and you come across any bugs or errors, you will be able to fix them immediately, which might not even cost you a lot. However, if you deploy your system without testing it and the users come across a lot of bugs and errors, it becomes much more costly. Number two, security wise. This is very important. You need to make sure that the system or the software that you deploy out there is very secured and not vulnerable. Okay? Number three, quality of the product. You need to make sure that the product that you're going to release out there, okay, the product or the system or the software that you're going to release out there has quality. Okay? It should be serving the user in one way or the other. Okay? And lastly, it's easy while adding new features. In other words, if you're doing testing, all right, if you're doing testing and you think that something is missing, it's even easier for you to add a new feature. Okay? And all that. So those are some of the importance of testing. We have so many of them. However, I only gave you 4, but I'll actually ask you guys to go further and research. Testing planning. Before you do any testing of a system or a software, you need to plan first. How are we going to test this system or software? How are we going to do it? You just don't wake up today and say, okay, call all the developers here, call all the users here, we are testing this system. No, you first need to come up with a plan. You need to have a testing plan. What are you going to test? Where are you going to start testing? What are you trying to accomplish when you are doing the testing? And so on. So it reads here that testing starts with the testers developing a test plan that defines a series of tests that will be conducted. In other words, the test plan has different series of tests that you will be conducting. Okay? In other words, as well, it's a list of different tests that you're going to take. You know what you're going to test. Okay? So a test plan often has 20 to 30 pages. It depends how big your project is, with a separate page for each individual test in the plan. Okay? So each individual test has a specific objective. Okay? For me, I think that when you have a test plan, it's much more important because you have something that is guiding you when you are testing that particular system or software. Rather than you just waking up and saying we are testing, you might miss out some very important features, okay, that you're supposed to test and so on. Okay? All right. So this is how the test plan looks like. So this is just a template. You find a lot of different templates that you can use, a lot of different test plan templates that you can use. It's all up to you to see what type of template you're going to use. All right? So this is just an example of a test plan. All right, so it has the tester's name, the date it was designed, the date conducted, the result, whether it passed or, open items, and then interface ID, data field, and so many other things. All right, so this is just an example, a template of a test plan. Okay, types of testings. Now, testings are divided into two. All right, we have what we call a functional testing, and we have a non-functional testing. All those testing that you know right now, they are divided into two. They're either part of the functional testing or the non-functional testing. The functional testing, however, focuses on the functionality of the system or the software. All right? While the non-functional testing just focuses on the performance of that particular system. All right? It focuses on the quality of the system or software. Now, the functional testing, we have four examples here. We have the unit testing, integrating testing, the system testing, and the acceptance testing. While the non-functional testing, we have the performance testing, security testing, usability testing, and compatibility testing. Now, I would like just to give you an example between these two testing. All right? Let me say that I'm a human. Okay? I have fingers, I have eyes. Um, okay, rather, let's say that there's a robot. All right? So the robot has hands, has legs, has fingers, has all that. Okay? So if you want to test if the fingers of the robot are working, what type of testing does that falls under? That's a functional testing. You want to test if the fingers are working. Okay? If you want to test if the leg is working or the eyes are working, that falls under functional testing. But if you want to find out how fast that robot can move, that falls under non-functional testing. Okay? If you want to find out, perhaps if you kick the robot, it will fall or not, that falls under the non-functional testing. Okay, so that's just an example that I'm giving you for you to have an open overview of the difference between these two. However, we will discuss them right now. Let's start with functional testing. What is functional testing? So, functional testing verifies each function or feature of the software or system. So, functional testing is testing the functionality of a software or an application under test. So it's based on the requirements of the client. A document called a software specification or requirement specification is used as a guide to test the application. So we spoke about the specifications and the requirements. So these ones, before you start developing a system or anything, you'll need the specification or the requirements of that particular system. Okay, so in other words, functional testing has to do only with you testing the functionalities or the features of the software. That's it. Okay? Let's talk about these features. All right. So let's say one of the features of the of let's say that you develop a website, maybe um let's look at Traffic College website. All right. So Traffic College website has many features. Let's say it has a blog. All right. Um, maybe it allows you to log in or to create an account. So all those are all different features. Okay, so if you enter your email or your username, or if you fill in the form, if you do those are all different features of that website. Just an example. All right, so when functional testing has to do with you testing the functionalities or the features of that particular software or system. Okay, so the examples now of the functional testing is unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. So let's start with unit testing. So the unit testing part of a testing methodology is the testing of an individual software module or component that make up an application or system. So unit testing is when you are testing each feature individually, feature by feature. Okay, so that's called unit testing. Okay, you test if you click on the button, if it will really accept or not. You test if you move close to the button, if it will hover or not. So you test each unit of each feature. All right, so unit, you all know what is unit, right? Yeah, so this is a testing methodology that will test and that will test uh, each feature of that particular software. Okay, that makes up the whole entire system. Okay, and then we have integration testing. So the integration testing part of a testing methodology is the testing of the different modules or components that have been successfully unit tested when integrating together to perform specific tasks and activities. All right. So it's also known as a scenario testing or end-to-end testing. Now, with integration testing, is when you are testing now the module or the components of that particular system. For example, if I enter my username now and I enter my password and I click OK button, will I be able to log in or not? Will it say successfully logged in or not? So that's like a component, all right, that you are testing. But with unit testing, you're only testing first. If you type in this, will it work? If you put in the a wrong email, will it still work or not? So you're just testing feature by feature. All right. But with integration, you now test the component or the modules of those unit tested. Okay. And then we have system testing. So the system testing part so the system testing part of a testing methodology involves testing the whole entire system. All right, so system testing is just you testing now the whole entire system to see if you find errors or any bugs. So this test is carried out by interfacing the hardware, the software components of the entire system that have been previously unit tested and integration tested. All right, so this is just testing the whole entire system. Okay, so system testing is testing the whole entire system. Let's start over. Unit testing is when you're only testing an individual feature of that system. Okay, and integration testing is when you are testing a component or a module of that system. While system testing is when you are testing the whole entire system to find out if there's any errors or bugs. Acceptance testing. The acceptance testing is part of a testing methodology. This is the final phase of functional software testing, and it involves making sure that all the product or project requirements have been met and that the end users and customers have tested the system to make sure it operates as expected and meets all the defined requirements. So the acceptance testing is just you accepting now that the whole system is tested and it can now be released or be deployed. All right, or you can either say that it meets all the defined requirements. Okay, so if you do not deploy it, obviously you first do functional testing before you do non-functional testing, whatever it is. Some people do non-functional testing and they do functional testing, but I believe that it's much more conducive if you first do the functional testing and then you do the non-functional testing. Because before you do the non-functional testing, you need to make sure that everything else is working well. All right. Yeah. So the acceptance testing is just a part of a testing methodology, right? Which is the final phase whereby you now accept that the system is tested and everything else is working very well. Okay, so that's the acceptance testing. So when you are doing the functional testing, you do it step by step. You start with unit. Okay, you first start with unit. After unit, followed by, I just want you guys to see, you first start with unit, followed by integration, followed by system testing, and lastly acceptance testing. So you don't start with acceptance testing and then you go, no, it does not make sense. Okay, so unit, integration, system, and acceptance. Okay, so those are the 4 examples of functional testing. Now let's move on to non-functional testing. So non-functional testing, there are some aspects which are complex, such as the performance of an application. Remember, we say that with the non-functional testing, you are basically just testing how the system is performing, the quality of the system. Okay, so it reads as it says, there are some aspects which are complex, such as the performance of an application, and this testing checks the quality of the software to be tested. Quality measure depends on the time, the accuracy, stability, correctness, durability of a product under various adverse circumstances. In software terms, when applications work as per users' expectations, smoothly, efficiently, under any condition, then it is stated as a reliable application. Based on these aspects of the quality, it is very critical to test under these parameters. Okay, so let's look at the examples of the non-functional testing. All right, so we have performance. No, before we go to the examples of the non-functional testing, we will look at the parameters. Okay, like it says here, based on these aspects of the quality, it is very critical to test under these parameters. So the parameters that are talking about is the performance, load or stressing testing, security or vulnerability testing, usability testing, or compatibility testing. So, however, they are also just examples of the non-functional testings. Okay, so they can be the parameters or the examples of the non-functional testing. So we have performance, load or stress testing, security or vulnerability testing, usability testing, and compatibility testing. So performance testing is measuring how a system is behaving. How is the system testing? Okay, under increasing load, both numbers of users and data volumes. For example, if 50 people log in the same system, will it be faster or will it slow down? Okay, so those are the performance testing that we are referring to. So load testing is verifying that the system can operate at the required response times when subjected to its expected load, and stress testing is finding the failure points in the system when the tested load exceeds what that which it can support. Okay. In other words, what they're trying to say here is this. Just like I gave you guys an example. If 20 people or 30 people are using the same system at the same time, what will be the performance of that particular system? How will it perform? Will it slow down? Or what will it crash? Or what exactly will happen? All right. So you need to test against that parameter. Okay. And then we have security testing. So security testing tests the software for confidentiality. So this is very clear. You need to find out if the system is secure. All right. Will it be easily be hacked by anybody or so on? Just like we explained, some of the organizations, they hire hackers just to come and test their system by trying to hack in their system to see if they will hack in easily or not. Okay? So security testing tests the software for confidentiality, integrity, authentication, availability, and non-repudiation. So individual tests are conducted to prevent any unauthorized access to the software code. Okay, just like we have explained, you need to make sure that whatever system or software you deployed out there, it should be secured enough. Usability testing. The usability testing is part of a testing methodology which looks at the end user usability aspect of the software. The ease with which a user can access the product forms the main testing point. So usability testing look at the 5 aspects of testing: learnability, efficiency, satisfactions, memorability, and errors. Okay, so usability testing just looks at when the user is making use of the system. All right, will the user probably come across any errors? Will the user be satisfied or not? And so on. Okay, is it very easy? Is it, user friendly or not? And so on. And then compatibility testing. All right, so this tests that the product or application is compatible with all the specified operating system, hardware platforms. So basically, this one is just to test how compatible the system or the software will be with other machines. There are certain softwares that are not compatible with on other machines. Okay, so you also need to make sure that you test the compatibility of that software or system before it is released. Okay, cool. So compatibility tests check that the product works as expected across all the different hardware or software combinations and that all functionalities is consistently supported. Okay. All right. So let's look at the difference between now the functional and the non-functional. So functional testing, when it comes to execution, it is performed before non-functional testing. Just like we said before, it is always very important to first perform functional testing before non-functional testing. Okay, first test the features before you test the quality of the system, because the quality of the system will be determined by the features of the system. Non-functional testing, it is performed after the functional testing. However, these two are mixed up. I don't know what type of programmer or software or tester that starts with non-functional and then go to functional. It does not make any sense. So first start with functional and then you test the non-functional and so on. Okay. Focus area. It is functional. It is based on customers' requirements, while non-functional focuses on customers' expectations. Requirement. Functional, it is easy to define functional requirements, but with non-functional, it is difficult to define the requirements for non-functional testing. Usage helps to validate the behavior of the application that's under functional testing, while non-functional, it helps to validate the performance of the application. Objective of functional testing carried out to validate software actions, while non-functional testings help to validate the performance of the application. No, it is done to validate the performance of the software, so it's basically the same. Requirements of functional testing. Functional testing is carried out using the function specification, while the non-functional, this kind of testing is carried out by performance specification. Manual testing. With functional testing, it's easy to execute by manual testing, while non-functional, it's very hard to perform non-functional testing manually. All right, functionality. With the functional testing, it describes what the product does, but with non-functional testing, it describes how the product works. Example test case of functional is check the login functionality if it's working or not. But the non-functional testing example is the dashboard should load in 2 seconds. So if you click on dashboard, will it load for 2 seconds or it will take a minute before it basically open the dashboard and so on. Testing types, we've spoken about the different types of testing that falls under functional and the different types of testing that falls under non-functional testing. Okay, so that's it. So that's the end of the lesson. So it's very much easy. So you just need to make sure that you understand the difference between the two. And the last examples between the two, that's very much important. So if you master this table, right here, okay, it becomes even much easier for you to understand the difference between the functional testing as well as then non-functional testing. So having said that, I wish you guys all the best. So I would like you guys to complete the activity or the quiz below. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask in the chat box right there. Okay, so enjoy your day, guys, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.